Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
It's like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. I'm your host, Jason Shea, and today we have a special guest, Norman, who have bring over 40 years of experience in the toy industry, including roles in sales, marketing, and product development, with 8 years dedicated to toy testing specifically. And Norman's here to share his expertise to ensure toys are safe and compliant for children worldwide. From navigating Amazon's approval process to understanding the importance of compliance in toys manufacturing, I believe this episode is going to fill with essential information for anyone in the toy businesses. So please stay tuned as we start today's interview. And thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, Norman.
Thank you for having me.
Can you start out by sharing with our audience a little bit about your background and how you got started doing what you currently do?
Okay, I started out as a retailer. And I worked for a major department store, and they put my first assignment was the toy department. So I spent years as assistant buyer in toys, moving on to different places, and then went to work for mass merchants in toys, and then got involved in toys and sporting goods because they're very well related, and junior sports. And I was there, did that for about 10 years, and then I moved over to the other side, into selling and sales managing for small and medium toy companies. That I got involved a little bit with toy development as well as, product development as well as selling to retailers. Oh, this whole country, toys and sporting goods. And then about 8 years ago, I made the move. I was offered a position because of my background in toys and related products into the testing business. The toy industry had been caught kind of flat-footed, but people were not testing very much, and the government started really implementing toy testing. So PSC, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, started TPSIA, which is basically the regulations for toys for the United States. I got involved with that, and I've been in that for the last 8 years, testing toys and helping people. We help people as they develop these so that they don't get involved in the pitfalls of having products that either can't pass or are dangerous.
What inspired you to focus specifically on toy testing and compliance after your career in sales and marketing?
It was just a good opportunity. It's really helping people do their product development. And it was, I'd say, basically just a good opportunity. And I found it really interesting. More than just pounding on doors, trying to sell my product, it became more of a mission as well as a good job.
Can you also explain to the audience the main compliance requirement for toys? Well, let's start out with U.S. first, because the majority of the listeners are in U.S., but then we can talk about other international marketplaces. But let's start out with U.S. first.
Well, U.S. testing is controlled by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, as I said. And the rules are CPSIA, which are readily available online, but it's very extensive. And there are standards for almost every type of toy, depending on age rating, depending on function, with batteries, without batteries. So there's all kinds of regulations. So every toy that someone develops, check out before you go into the process of actually manufacturing. Like in many cases where someone's bought a mold, start molding something and find out that it'll never pass. And also your age grading. Many people think that age grading is just a suggestion for the parents, but it's not. It's also a suggestion as to what requirements your product must pass.
That's true.
That for three and up is different than an item that's 8 and up. And of course, all ages for babies, there's a whole additional requirements.
The younger the age, the more strict the requirement, correct?
And also, sometimes a lot of the size of the parts. Batteries. Now, batteries have become a very big part of the testing, especially the small button batteries. A law, as called recent law, which is based on a child who actually died from ingesting battery.
What about it? Yeah,
So there's all kinds of new regulations on button batteries, labeling in the battery into the product. All things that you should know before you
design the button.
before you produce. You can design it, but if you don't know that you have to have a tiny little screw locking the compartment, that you can adjustment later on when you want to launch a production. A lot of the labs, and we do this, we'll work with our customers. And yes, they can ask us a question. They can send us a picture of what they want to do. And so then we'll take on it neat. Don't do it this way. Do it this way. Because yes, you won't pass if you do it the way you want to do it.
You mentioned about different age group. What are the most common age group? Maybe under 3, then above 3, about 8?
Children's toys in the United States are considered 12 and under. But you can't dismiss them by saying, okay, I'll give you an example. You make a radio control car, and you don't want it caught with the regulation.
They say 13 plus?
Or you make it, but you have Mickey Mouse sitting in the driver's seat.
Okay, that is not right.
Packaging shows a 6-year-old playing with it. You call it. It doesn't mean it is.
It doesn't mean it is.
It's really a common sense thing. Now, at 8 and up, there's some kind of judgment. You can make that judgment that you don't recommend it. Let's say a science or a STEM toy. You want it. You recommend it's not good for children under 8 years old. Listen, most parents always think their kids are smarter than the age rating. So if they're rated, so if you're out, really, my kid's 6 years old, but he's smart. But that's not your problem. Your problem is recommending the proper age for the age.
One more marketplaces that we also focus a lot on here at Toy Launch is Amazon Japan, when we actually help our client to expand into Amazon Japan.
Right.
Also talk about how much do you understand the Japanese?
I'm glad you picked Japan. STC is one of the few non-Japanese government labs that can test for Japan. Because we are a leader in Asia and our headquarters are in Hong Kong, we do Japanese toy testing. And Japanese toy testing is totally different than everybody else.
Yes, that's correct.
Each material is to be tested separately. Different types of plastics, where in the U.S. and also a country, we can combine plastics. Japan is totally different, and we can help people with toy testing. We recommend also is when you're looking at your product, where you want to sell it. The more countries you can combine at the beginning, save money with it. We can share some of the results.
Makes sense.
Chemical in it. When we test a plastic for lead, the testing for Europe is different than testing for the U.S., but the U.S. will accept the results from the lab that had testing. But on the other hand, if you don't have customers in a certain area, it doesn't pay for the testing. Many Amazon customers that we deal with, what we recommend is test for the U.S. and Canada.
U.S. Canada first.
There's a lot of cross-selling across the border, and of course, you roll out more to add Canada. But if you don't add Canada and you come back 6 months later, you're starting to get more.
How about Mexico? Because it's all part of the same North American account.
Mexico is still up in the air for a lot of things. Many Mexican companies just use the U.S. testing, but Mexico is putting in regulations, and it's something that has to be watched.
I see, yeah.
But right now, a lot of U.S. product is sold in Mexico, probably without testing, I'll be honest with you. You feel in U.S. testing and you ship it in. There's a lot of that going on in all markets.
Yeah,
true. Testing, and they think that they're compliant. So you have to handle it on a case-by-case basis.
Based on your experience doing testing for the toy industry for so many years, what are some of the most common challenge that you see toy manufacturers usually face when you're trying to meet those compliance standards?
The biggest thing is size of product to start with, choking hazard. Especially true balls and things like that. It becomes very hard to pass a certain regulation. Sometimes you may have to make a ball slightly bigger if you're compliant for that age group. Package warnings. Like you're not restricted necessarily from carrying something or producing something, but you may have to put a warning on the package, a choking hazard warning, or not suitable, or adult supervision required. The biggest problem most people have, though, in the chemical testing here. People from whatever manufacturing your plastics or your plastic toy.
Yes.
It passes testing. It comes in and the U.S. Customs happens to do a spot check on your item.
Yes.
They find lead in it. Why didn't that happen?
Oh.
You manufacturer went ahead and produced whatever they wanted to do once they had the passing. So we always suggest to people at the beginning dealing with a factory,
Yeah.
let an inspector go and post the sample, the testing sample from your shipment. That way you know what you ordered is what you're getting. You ordered your product and now you're getting. Another bad thing that really causes problems for small toy companies is they over-design. Let me make an example. You're doing a sorting toy for a little children, and you have 20 blocks, and you do each one in a different color.
Oh,
Every color stands on its own. Now, you're allowed by the U.S. standards to test up to 3 colors of the same material as a group. So if you design something with 9 colors, that's 3 test groups. If you design it with more money, adding an extra color. So we tell people to think about those things in advance. You really need something different color.
Well, I think a lot of the problem, a lot of the toy entrepreneur, toy inventor I talk to, they don't know what they don't know. It's like, what? They don't know that.
And also, if you're going to sell it to Europe, there's more stringent testing for lead and chemicals in Europe. So the more colors you add, the more colors you add, it's the crop. It's going to hurt your items. Question. The prime example is I worked at a customer who was selling bicycle accessories.
Okay.
Horns, did bells, things like that.
Yeah.
They had a distributor in Europe who wanted to sell their horns.
Okay.
How much was he going to get an order for? 300 horns.
Yeah.
The testing was $3,000.
Oh, okay.
All of a sudden, it didn't pay to ship to Europe.
Yeah.
So even though you can pass the testing, and in fact, you have a large enough business, but you have to know what it's going to cost you to use the item. So if you're going to sell an item in the U.S., now there is some regulations for small batch manufacturers. You can get away with certain testing not being done. You can take a report from a factory. But in most cases, we suggest that the toy entrepreneur or the toy importer does the testing himself. Because 2 things happen. We see when people get factory testing, we see a few things happening. 1, U.S. regulations require testing yearly. If the test is 3 years old, you may have a test, but it doesn't mean it's not valid. You can't use it.
True.
Secondly, if you have a test from the factory, you don't know what sample was sent.
That's true.
So they can send a perfect sample, get a passing test, and then go ahead and manufacture whatever materials they want to use. Thirdly, people say, I saved money. I didn't pay for the testing. It's in the price. Factory is not doing it as a charity. We always suggest the smartest thing to do is to do your own testing. That way, you're in charge. But the word thing, I'll give a perfect example. We had a customer, he tested 4 items with us.
Yeah.
When it came into the U.S., customs happened to flag randomly. They tested all 4 items for lead. 3 of them failed. Well, what happened? Whatever. I can't. You asked me. And what we told him was,
the sample is not right.
At the factory center, we didn't test your
shipment.
At the beginning, and that's where a lab can help you. We advise our customers. So as you're getting ready to order, as you're getting ready to even talk to your lab, and we'll give you information what to do, what's the best way to handle it to avoid that disaster.
That is actually a perfect segue to my next question. How can the toy company minimize their testing costs without compromising on the safety?
Again, we've talked about most of it. The bottom line is talk to your lab advisor, your salesman at your lab beforehand and get advice. You can go up on the CPSC website and read a lot of the regulations, and some of them will make sense to you, but some of them may be vague to you when you're looking at it. So, for instance, when I talk to customers, I'll state to them, let's say they're making stuffed animals. That's a perfect example. And they want to do 6 different varieties. Okay, that's 2 test groups. But if the eyes are if you do the same eye, let's say black plastic, we can test that once, apply that to all 6 items. We'll say to a customer, why don't you do it this way? Does each eye have to be different? But it's just advice. It's just common sense ways to fight it minimally. We know what we have to charge you to test.
Yeah.
So if you can eliminate that test, you're saving money. Same thing like I said to you with colored plastics.
Yeah.
And also using the same material.
Indeed.
Using polyethylene. Use it throughout. Don't switch to another plastic for one piece.
Yeah. That you
Realize you have to test everything. Screws, Velcro, zippers, all have to be tested.
Yeah.
And a zipper has the teeth, the slider, the handle, all separate items.
Yeah.
If you put a zipper on a product, use the same zipper for all your product. Change the color, then you have to test all those things again.
And okay, makes sense.
First, again, common sense approach to toy design. One of the things that I always said, toy designers, many of them are in a fantasy land. They're making something for children to be fancy.
Yeah.
Or let's make 17 colors. And the other thing also have to look at is anything that has to do with a liquid. If you're doing a paint, how many colors are you applying?
Yeah.
We people, they think of palette of 36.
Maybe from color? Oh, whoa. Okay, that's a lot of that.
Big testing room.
Yeah.
So these are all the things to use. Just use common sense.
I see.
A good lab will work with the customer in advance. We advise customers all the time on what you do and what not to do. Drop points, round it off.
Thank you for sharing that. So I want to transition to the next part of the interview to talk a little bit more about Amazon, because Amazon is like the biggest elephant in the room. Most of the toy manufacturers are selling or trying to sell on Amazon. Can you share a little bit of your experience dealing with Amazon's product compliance?
First of all, Amazon started to crack down on testing every year.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. You're selling on Amazon, be prepared that yearly you will have to retest your product. Now, the law says if you produce tracking information, the state is still the same batch.
Yeah.
If you made 5,000 pieces, and it's the second year you got 1,000 to out.
Yes.
The government thinks you can still keep selling them.
Yes.
Amazon is too rigid. Basically, the computer says it's over a year old, they're going to ask you for testing again.
Okay.
You really can't fight that. You can try by saying it's the same batch. If you get lucky enough to get a live person to talk to, maybe you get away with it. But for the most part, plan on testing every year. Okay. Amazon, for the most part, only requires what the locality requires. So if you're selling in the U.S., the only standard they want is the U.S. QPSIN.
Mm-hmm.
They don't ask for extra.
Okay.
Some major retailers will ask something extra. In their experience, they want this or they want something else that's not part of the regulations. And that's their prerogative. But for Amazon, it's simply whatever that local country requirements are. So if you're selling in Europe, you need European testing. And one of the things we find also is if you get I didn't mention this before, but if you get testing from a factory, many times the foreign factory doesn't really know each regulation. So they'll give you a test. They pass the test in Europe. They give you the test and you want to ship it to the U.S. So Amazon will make sure that your testing is for the right country and the right standards. One of the problems you can hit with Amazon, we help customers with this all the time. Let's say a regulation changes, either light, looser, or tighter, but they still have in their system the old standard. Sometimes they won't accept the new testing, and we have to go fight for them. So in other words, the standard was 2 years older, and they haven't changed it yet. And now you've actually tested something safer than the old standard. It doesn't matter to Amazon. They just want that old result. So our lab managers in many cases can give you a letter to submit. It works most of the time, not all the time. Sometimes go back to we actually had one customer we went back and tested the old standard for them just so they could get past. There are 2 million sellers on Amazon and millions of products. At a certain point, they can't check everything and be right about everything.
Yeah. I think the Amazon customer support is just following a standard checklist. They don't really understand what they're looking at. But do you have any strategy that you recommend to overcome those Amazon compliance requirements? And that's actually something we are dealing with on the daily basis here at Toy Launch, because we try to help our client to get approved by Amazon, but sometimes we keep on getting disapproved or get rejected because it's missing like a line or the wording in the testing is not how Amazon want to see it. But Amazon is not really specific on exactly what they want to see neither. So it's very frustrating sometimes dealing with Amazon platform.
I don't know I can't speak for the other lab, but what we'll do is if a customer calls us, whether we tested before and they're in trouble or they're new to us, we'll ask them to send us what Amazon has sent them. Whether it's an email, an attachment, and then we look at it. And our lab manager has a way he's dealt with so many of the problems. Sometimes he has a simple answer. All you're going to do is this. Well, all you need is this piece of paperwork, and we'll do a small test. Or maybe that test was omitted.
Okay.
We'll do that test for them. All I can say is what we do is we try to help interpret what Amazon is asking for. And I would say we're probably 90% successful. No, we're 100% successful. But we're pretty successful. We have a joke in the lab. We say our lab manager speaks Amazonese. He knows enough products. He knows what. Sometimes it's just a picture. There's no picture on the report. A test report uses a picture of the item.
Yes.
And he'll say, we have to put a picture into that report.
Because, like I said, Amazon's customer support just follow a basic checklist. They don't really understand what they are reading.
And by the way, I'll warn your listeners, don't ever try to change something on your report to make Amazon happy. We get that all the time where Amazon will send us a copy of a report and say, is this the valid report? We'll see where it's on either added a new skill or something our mistake. The picture is off center. Being that pictures are always centered, they may say, is this your report? It looks different. Never try to change a report to try to get past. Because if Amazon catches you altering the report, then you can suspend it forever.
Yes, they can suspend you. Exactly. They can suspend your account. Now they're in big trouble.
Yes. The other thing too is that we didn't talk about this before, but when you're testing, even when you're in production, if something fails, you have the opportunity to resubmit a new part. So in the case of if you're doing it as the manufacturer, we can make sure that it's a valid thing. If a factory does it, you can send a perfect sample to get the test passed. It's always better to take control of your own business. Take control of your own business. That's the best advice.
Can you walk us through the process on how your lab work with new toy companies, and what question do you ask them before you take them on?
First, for the most part, what we do is I send out a basic questionnaire, which gives you asking the name of your company, address, contact information, all that basic stuff. Then we ask for a picture of the product, a bill of materials, if you have it, so that we know what the product is made up of, what countries you want to sell it in. And now what we do is we take that information, and in most cases, we can quote what the testing is going to cost going forward. Now, we may look at it and say, this is going to be extra because it doesn't fit the regulations or things like that. Then what we'll do is once the client looks at the cost for the testing, they say yes or no. If they say yes, we then require samples. Usually a minimum of 2 to 3 samples of an item. So if you only have one prototype, it's not possible for us to really test. And then what we'll do is we get the samples in, we re-quote it. Why is that? Because maybe we couldn't see that there was screws at the bottom of the item. And something we didn't realize it was battery operated.
Oh, yeah. That's a big difference. Yeah.
Now it's a big change. Then we send a formal quote to the client and to approve it. Normal testing in China is 5 to 7 days. In the U.S., it's 7 to 10 days. Just so everybody is aware of it, all lands require payment in advance of releasing the report. In all honesty, not that it doesn't happen that often, but if somebody fails, they go, I don't want to pay for it. But so you have to know you're going to pay for the report, even if there's a failure on it. You're going to pay for the report before you read it. Then when you read the report, if there's a failure, we'll work with you on how to correct
the failure part.
You can pass.
I see. So you mentioned about the lab in China and lab in U.S. Which lab do you most of the time use?
Depends on where they manufacture it. Two-story testing, even if it is cheaper than testing in the U.S.
Of course, yes.
If the product is here, though, sometimes it's more money to send it overseas. We'll advise. A made-in-USA product, most of our customers will test here. And also, it depends on the product. Some products you save a lot of money by testing in China.
China.
You don't save that much because things like cardboard puzzles, it's not that much different. So you might as well do it
Oh, I see.
locally and we can handle it. It all depends. We advise the people as it comes up. What we don't normally do is if you're manufacturing in China, we ask what city, and because we have multiple labs, try to have the lab that's closest to your factory working with you. Now, when they need another sample, it gets there in days. Instead of waiting 2 weeks to get a sample.
But I guess back to the thing you mentioned earlier, how can we make sure the factory sample that's being sent by the factory is actually the product they'll be making at the end? Because you mentioned about this as a potential issue.
There's 2 ways to do it. Most labs that we have one also has an inspection company. And we recommend that, especially when you're first getting started. Number one, if you tell a factory that you are going to be sending an inspector, a lot of people do is they'll test from the prototype samples that they get, what samples they get from the factory. Because a lot of the stuff is already made. But then when the shipment is ready, they'll send one piece with just for chemical testing, because that's really
from the production run itself.
Right, from the production run. When you first start out as a new importer, a new product, it pays to add that one extra test.
Sure.
Down the road, when you know your factory is good, I have certain factories that never fail.
Yeah.
We deal with the supplier, with their customers all the time. And they never fail. They make good product. But sometimes you read a small factory that you don't know. To go to China, you know what it costs. You got to fly in China. You don't speak the language. You have to get somebody to work with you. And the average inspection is around $300 US.
Yeah, usually. Yeah.
So to send someone to a factory to inspect, and plus they'll inspect more than one piece.
If it's relevant.
And randomly look to make sure some of the products coming in, what you ordered, and it's your quality product.
I have another question. It's more of a selfish question because right now I'm actually looking into sourcing from Mexico for my own trip because of the U.S.-China relationship and also the upcoming elections. There's a lot of uncertainty whether or not they're going to raise the tariff again. They did a couple of years ago. So I don't know how much experience have you working with your customer that's being currently manufactured in Mexico, and how is your experience dealing with a factory in Mexico?
Manufactured in Mexico, and most of those customers will test, a U.S. one. Again, you're not talking about selling in Mexico. You're talking about just
manufacturing in Mexico.
Right. So the only difference there is the few people that we've done with done that with, their people there pull the samples. We don't have an inspection company there to do the sampling, but most of the companies that are producing in Mexico, a lot of them are California companies. They're always going back and forth between Mexico and California.
Yeah.
So they'll pull the product and we'll test it in the U.S. lab. There's a lot of stuff. Could you ship it to China? Yeah. But you got to deal with customers and all these other. We have our one-to-one basis, but again, most of the stuff if it's made in Mexico, we'll test here. One thing we have found, though, lots of failures on paint coming out.
Oh, really? Okay, good to know.
I haven't dealt too much with the actual plastics.
Yeah.
Molded plastics, but the paints, anything that's painted, had a lot of problems getting lead-free paint. We got a couple of customers that actually got new samples of paint, and the paint was, again, tested, and it didn't pass either.
Oh, whoa. Okay, that's not good.
So they got to be careful with that in Mexico. Yeah, but in Mexico, right? For now.
Do you have any referral or sources for inspection company in Mexico?
I do have some people that I know from the industry. Yes, we could refer. I can give you as a client information how to contact them.
Okay, sounds good. As well, wrapping up today's interview, my final question is, what advice will you give to new toy entrepreneur or manufacturer about the importance of compliance and safety when it comes to product development, and what should they think about? You mentioned a few points earlier during our today's interview of what to think about doing product development so they don't overproduce or over-design the toy itself.
Even more, but we've discussed most of the ways to avoid excess costs. My advice, though, is not to take it lightly. Testing, there have been many people that have brought merchandise in over the years that are selling merchandise that wasn't tested or wasn't properly tested. The times are changing. Number one, within a year, you're going to have to, anybody importing is going to have a way to put their test results and their CPC, their Consumer Product Certificate, on the cloud. Customs is going to require it with every shipment. So it's not going to be like before, I got through. I would say there's so many products on Amazon that people have been selling for years that never tested. But now they're getting caught by Amazon. And in the future, it's going to be the U.S. government. Anything coming into the United States is going to have the proper paperwork. And because of AI and because of massive computer systems now, 30 years ago, a customs agent would have to go in and look through files to try to find paperwork. So these are trying to get away with not testing or, I'll just get the factory's report. It's dangerous for you. It's dangerous for the consumer. And more importantly, it's dangerous for your pocketbook. Because the last thing you need is a shipment. Customs in charge of your rent every day.
Yeah.
Eventually destroying it because they won't just sell it.
Yeah. You'll lose a lot more money than you try to save something on the test report.
And also, if you have a good test report and you do the inspections in the product, that container that's coming in is available. Yeah, I've had people that get shipments in, and then when they open it up, it's not what they ordered.
Yeah, that would be bad. That would be really bad.
Or quality is so bad that they're getting 30. Listen, everybody who works on Amazon knows that they track everything. If you need 25% returns, you're not going to be very high ranked on Amazon. You're going to look at it as a designer of toys or a new toy manufacturer. You have to have, you're paying a designer, you're paying a packaging person. You're going to have to pay for testing.
It's the cost of running a business. Yeah.
And we recommend finding a lab that will work with you. And we always say, we answer the phone. As a designer, you call somebody and you don't want to wait 2 weeks for someone to call you back. So find a lab that's going to work with you and treat you the way you deserve to be treated.
Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and the advice. Where can our audience find you?
We're in our lab is in New Jersey. My email address, will you be posting the email address?
We'll put it in the show note. Yeah.
Okay, so the email address is there. But I have a direct phone number. It's 201-391-4727. We'll get back to you. And I said you'll have the email address. Just email me, and I want to talk to you about a toy, or here's my new toy. And we'll talk to you and get back to you, and we'll start working with you.
What is your website as well?
Website is www.stc.group.
Okay.
/EN. I know we get the Chinese version.
Okay. Got it.
That's the company website. And like I said, we are labs in China, Vietnam, Germany, U.S., so we can help with most of your needs.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support and would love it if you could leave us a review and share the podcast with your friend or colleague in the toy industry. For more resources, tips, and latest updates in the toy industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using hashtag ToyBusinessUnboxed. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, keep bringing joys through toys. This is Jason Shea signing off from Toy Business Unboxed podcast, and see you in the next episode.